Welcome to our Friday, November 14th edition of Golden Black Live. Special show today, and Tom Dienhart will join us in segment one. We'll talk Purdue Washington football. Segment two, Robbie Hummel will join, talk kind of the state of Purdue basketball, his thoughts on Matt Painter. We'll see what he's thinking about him, and is going to be doing some work for CBS this year among NBC, Fox, BTM. And finally, in our third segment, Peyton Stovall. And Purdue's works in the Purdue as an associate athletic director, does a lot with student athletes and their wellness, not only from a physical but mental standpoint, and making sure that that's the best experience possible. I mean, he's just and also a really good basketball player. So we'll have some talk about him in last night's Purdue Alabama game as well. All right, and a reminder too, we want to thank our sponsors, Triple X on the Hill, but on a level of Purdue tradition since 1929, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson. It's trentismyagent.com. And a programming note: no show next week because no football game. Purdue will be on the road, and our next show will be December 5th because the following week will be leading into Thanksgiving. So we appreciate all of you, and we'll bring on Mr. Dienhart and talk a little Purdue. The Boilermakers, and you're making the trek to Seattle and Husky Stadium, and Purdue's going to be not as big an underdog as it's been the last 2 weeks. I guess they were a big underdog at Michigan against a Washington team that is reeling a little bit on the heels of its loss at Wisconsin. They've had problems scoring on the road.
Yeah,
I've had problems somewhat scoring it, but at home they can be a little bit of a different animal. But this is a big challenge for Purdue come Saturday night, our time, late Saturday afternoon, Seattle time.
Yeah, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, Alan, talking to some people out there, it's been two different teams, home and road, and you talked about the home field advantage. And Washington's been very good in their own venue this year. Of course, Ohio State beat them, but Ohio State's beating everybody, right?
Yeah.
Before that, the Huskies had like a 21-game winning streak at home. So just a tough environment, Alan. It gets loud in there, about 70,000 seats. And it could be a little rainy and cold, too, on Saturday for this ball game. So, yeah, that loss last week you referenced at Wisconsin, 13-10, a real clunker, Alan. Really disappointing to the fans and the staff out there. Pretty much takes them out of contention for a college football playoff spot. So a lot like Purdue, Allen, they're just kind of playing for pride here down the stretch. They certainly want to get back on track here and enhance their resume as much as they can to see what kind of bowl game they can get into.
Yeah, because there are some good. I mean, the Big Ten does have some good bowls. No matter what you think about them, that now is truly what the Huskies have to play for. You know, it has been interesting. They score 7 points at Michigan, lose that game 24-7. The Wisconsin game really quite an upset. You know, Purdue's has a lot to play for, even though it doesn't seem like that on the surface. I mean, you look at a team right now that's looking right at 2 wins for this season. You want to make incremental improvement. I thought they did at Michigan. I thought last week, maybe some. I think would you agree that the effort has been pretty consistent, though, at least from Barry Odom's crew?
I think so. Really, I do. All things considered, the number of new players, the schedule, Alan, we talked about the schedule all summer leading into the season, certainly has lived up to the hype as being one of the toughest schedules in America. So by and large, other than that Northwestern game that was a real outlier as far as being just non-competitive, a no-show effort by the Boilermakers that day, aside from that, Alan, I thought they have been very competitive. They look well coached. We hear about Barry Odom wanting to establish his culture, and I think that's taken place here. And, Alan, coming down the stretch here, though, the offense is really scuffling.
Yes.
They moved the football. I think they're 10th in the Big Ten in total offense, but they're 16th in scoring. And then the Big Ten, 20 points per game, Alan. And that's the name of the game. You got to score points. And the red zone's been the real bugaboo for Purdue, right? It's the worst red zone offense in the Big Ten. So they can move the ball between the 20s as well as a lot of schools, but they can't finish the deal with touchdowns, kicking field goals too often. So that's been the issue in the passing game too, Alan. The last few weeks has just descended. They only had 94 yards passing last week. I understand that was Ohio State, but again, that's a trend that's continued for the better part of the last 4 or 5 games where we've seen that aerial attack really continue to descend here as the season's gotten deeper and deeper.
One of the things we're watching for, obviously, and Barry Odom talked about that. Charles Correa looking like he's healthy. He practiced Monday, the last time he had a chance to talk to or hear from Coach Barry Odom. But this is a Purdue defense that did some good things has done some good things recently, and certainly Correa and Powell at the linebacker have been pretty formidable all season. But in Wisconsin or Washington, I keep messing up my W's there, but Washington has some names on offense, so it's struggled. I mean, that's what's been so interesting. Damon Williams, quarterback, is a dual threat guy. They've got a couple of good running backs, and one of them being Jonah Coleman, who followed Jed Fish over from Arizona, and some good receiving core. So Purdue's got to be on its A game defensively, but one would think that it still has the ability to be a low enough scoring game that even though you're having problems scoring like Purdue is, you can be in this football game down the stretch.
Yeah, Washington's a little bit banged up, Alan, but you referenced some of the playmakers. Jonah Coleman, the running back, a little banged up. The best receiver is Denzel Boston. He's the big play guy. Watch him. And then Damon Williams, he's the straw that stirs the drink for the Husky offense, Alan. No quarterback in the Big Ten has as many rushing yards as Williams, almost 500. And Allen, he's got 12 rushes for over 20 yards this year. That leads America, not just quarterbacks, that leads America as far as most rushes for 20-plus yards this year. So it gives you a sense of his dynamic playmaking ability. He's going to be a handful. It'll be very interesting to see how Purdue chooses to defend him, Allen. And you're right. If Purdue's offense continues to scuffle, you talked about a low-scoring game. Purdue's got to hope it's low-scoring because they're not going to win a shootout, obviously. And so if they can keep it low-scoring, get some takeaways, maybe get a pick-six score on defense, that certainly will help, Allen. And the storylines are storylines galore, right? Yeah. We haven't even mentioned Ryan Walters' name yet.
No, that was next, but fire away, my friend.
You think Ryan Walters is going to be motivated here to shut out Purdue? So it's going to be very interesting. He'll be on the field. I think he works from the field, Alan, so we'll probably get a lot of sideline shots of Ryan Walters during the game, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the former Purdue coach took over a defensive coordinator. And there are other storylines. Of course, Barry Odom's brother is well on the staff there. So, I thought it was interesting and not surprising from Barry Odom, but talked to, he's talked about his friendship with Ryan Walters and obviously his brother. That's part of how he seems to operate. But they won't have any problem competing once the lights go on comes late Saturday afternoon. And the lights will be on it at Washington because that game's going to play into the night. Past dark, certainly at that 4:00 start.
Yeah, it was fun talking to Barry Odom on Monday. I asked him about his brother, asked him if his mom and dad were going to be at the game or not. And of course, I had to ask him whose mom and dad were going to root for. And Barry made it sound like he was never the favorite child, Alan.
Yeah, I know. I felt bad for him.
Maybe he's got middle child syndrome.
Yeah,
he's
could be.
He's the middle of 3 boys. Of course, Brad Odom, who's on the Purdue staff as recruiting coordinator. And you got Barry, and then you got Brian Odom, who's the inside linebackers coach for Washington. He's the youngest. I bet you he was the favorite. The baby's always the favorite.
Yeah, that's the way it works. I wasn't the baby, so that's the way it works.
I was the baby. I guess we can be spoiled, right? Spoiled brats.
Yeah, it's a good way to be. All right, Purdue and Washington have an interesting history. Purdue fans will remember two. Mostly, probably the two games that were played at neutral sites. Those neutral sites being El Paso, Texas, and then of course in Pasadena. They're actually, within a short period of one another. Yeah. And Purdue won, and both were the same score. Unfortunately for Purdue, this 34-24 score at the Rose Bowl was in Washington's favor. 2 years later? Yeah, 2 years later. The Boilermakers beat the Huskies, come back from a 17-point deficit, I think it was. They got way down early in that game and really came back and won that game. But your thoughts and memories of that? It's a big deal for Purdue football history, those two games, and then we'll talk about the 70s as well.
Yeah, Pasadena, California, El Paso, Texas.
Yeah. Don't they always talk about how much Joe Tiller always talked about how much he
Yeah.
loved El Paso because they treated you right out there. But yes,
It's supposed to be very beautiful. It's supposed to be very beautiful. I never made it to obviously to a Sun Bowl, but
I went to two of them. I did not go to. I went in 2004 and 2001. The one right after the one after 9/11. Later in that season, I did not go to the 2002. Purdue played there 3 times in 4 years, if you recall, and lost 2 of the 3. But yeah, it's that, and then of course the teams played in the 80s. Fred Akers. All 4 years at Fred Akers' career, he was 0-4 against the Huskies, and Washington was under Don James. I think all 4 of those years was rolling pretty well. And then, of course, those games in 1971 and 72 with Sonny Sixkiller, the Washington quarterback, a couple really crushing Purdue losses. But it's been an interesting series from that standpoint.
Yeah, really, Alan. Of course, I remember those late 80s games, 87 and 90. I was at the home games in 88 and 90. And those were some halcyon days for the Huskies program, Alan. Of course, they won a share of the national title. I think it was 1990 or 91.
Right.
And Steve Entman, the gigantic defensive tackle, one of the best college football players ever, first pick in the draft, I believe, by the Colts. Just great players. Napoleon Kaufman and the quarterbacks. We talk about Purdue being the cradle of quarterbacks. Go down a rabbit hole sometime if you get bored and look at the quarterbacks that have matriculated through Washington. Just in that stint from 87 to 90, I'm talking Chris Chandler, Kerry Conklin, and Mark Brunell, all NFL quarterbacks, Alan. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for the quarterbacks there. So I always really admired that program out there. It's a big school. It kind of always reminded me of a Big Ten school out west.
Yeah.
With the passion for football and the size of the stadium and the success that they had was really close to being Big Ten-like. And here they are in the Big Ten, Alan. And me and you talked earlier this week about the early 70s game, Sixkiller versus Gary Danielson. Yeah. Sonny Sixkiller, the first time I heard that name, I thought it was made up. But Sonny Sixkiller, I think a Native American. And then, of course, this series started in the early 60s. And Purdue won the first matchup, I think, in 1961 out in Seattle. They played out there the next year in Seattle for some reason. They tied. So I think Purdue's 0-3-1 in its last 4 trips to the Emerald City. And, of course, the last trip being in 1989.
Yeah, I need to do some research of why. Probably have to talk to Dale Samuels, our 95-year-old friend, about. I'm not sure why they played back-to-back games, but yeah, I look at back in the and I was old enough, 11 or so years old in the 71-72 games. The 71 game was a game on quote unquote national TV. One of the there weren't many games on national TV, and that was a terrific football game. It was kind of a ping pong match back and forth. Darryl Stingley, Otis Armstrong had long touchdowns in that game with Gary Danielson. Purdue loses in the last minute, 38-35. Then they return the game the following year in Ross-Ade Stadium, and Purdue jumps up to a 21-0 lead. Gary Danielson still have a hard time because Gary was not fleet of foot, and he would tell you that. He had over 200 yards rushing in the first half at a quarter as out of the wishbone. Well, Washington just couldn't defend it. Purdue gets ahead 21-0. Danielson has a real bad cold, doesn't play in the second half. Washington and Sonny Sixkiller come back and beat Purdue 22-21 in a very, very disappointing loss to a team that did finish 6-5 under Coach Bob DeMoss. But a lot of, I think they have more. Well, they do. They have more for NFL first-round draft picks on that 72 Purdue team than any other with Dave Butts, Otis Armstrong, and Darryl Stingley. Yeah. So there has been a history. Now with the Big Ten the way it is, it's got history is going to ramp up some because the two teams will be playing one another. But a lot of fun storylines tomorrow, and that game with Ryan Walters on the sideline on down the line, it's going to be fun to watch.
You're right. Special teams coach Chris Petrelli followed Ryan out there too. So you're right. Now it's kind of fun having these West Coast teams in the Big Ten now, and adds a little spice to it, brings some new faces into the Big Ten as well. And we'll see what happens Saturday. It's going to be very interesting to see, how Purdue plays, if they're still playing to the echo of the whistle, as they say. They're still trying hard because, man, Alan, you're 2-8. It's mid-November. It's been a long year. You're hurt. You're sore. You're tired. Doesn't seem like things are going anywhere. Are you still going to bring your A game? And we'll see if they get fired up. I got to think, Alan, on the road in that environment, that should get everybody juiced up, I think.
Yeah, one would think, and if you're a Purdue fan, you have to hope that's the case. All right, Tom, may you have no travel delays, and hope that it's always neat to be able to go out there and go to that beautiful campus and see a college football game, and that part is a good thing. All right, we will take a short break, a couple minutes worth, and then bring out Rob Hummel, who will talk to us a little Purdue basketball, et cetera. And then finally in segment 3, Peyton Stovall will join us as we'll conclude the show. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Golden Black Live.